to the Coffee Talk for today with JC and Lending here. I'm Chad. This is Sean. And so we have today's topic is going to be on a 2-1 buy down. So let's start with a 2-1 buy down. 2-1 buy downs are really popular in today's market. You know, as interest rates went up, the advertising of 2-1 buy downs has been everywhere now, including here, obviously. They've been around forever. It's just that they've made a comeback.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's just dive right into what a 2-1 buy down is, or how does that help, and what can we do to help leverage a 2-1 buy down, and when is it good for customers, or really, you know, whatever that looks like. So let's start off with any questions. What type of questions would you have as it relates to a 2-1 buy down?
Yeah. First and foremost, I would ask, what is it, and how does it help me? Which it's very beneficial in a market like this with high interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we could say, let's just say interest rates are 6%.
Okay.
We get a 2-1 buy down, we're looking at a 4% interest rate. Now, how is that possible?
Right. Yeah, so a 2-1 buy down. So first of all, you got to take a step back and know that there's a few different types of buy downs out there, right? There's a 1-0 buy down, a 2-1 buy down, and a 3-2-1 buy down. The most popular out of that is a 2-1 buy down. So a 2-1 buy down, like in this instance that you had said, it says that if you have a 6% interest rate, if today's going rate is 6%, maybe you're watching this and it's 5.8, or maybe you're watching this and it's 6.5. Doesn't really matter. We're just going to use 6% as just a starting point. If the going rate is 6%, the 2-1 buy down says that for the first year, it's a temporary buy down. So the first year, it's going to be at 4%. That's 2 points below, 2% below the 6%. The second year will be 1% below, so now it's at 5%, and then that third year is going to go back to the 6%. So at the very core of it, that's what a 2-1 buy down is. And a 3-2-1 buy down will be the same thing, where you went from 6 down to 3, and then 3 points below, and then 2 points below, and then 1 point below.
Yeah. So in a market like today, where, you know, not necessarily today, but just kind of in general, the market that we're experiencing, these are extremely hot because, you know, we're hoping, obviously no promises, we don't know what the future holds, but this is a good tool to maybe get a lower interest rate for a few years, and then, you know, in a couple of years we're hoping rates are back down, and it would be a good tool for home buyers right now. And I know there's a lot of fence buyers right now, and a lot of people don't know about the 2-1 buy downs. It's super popular, and it's a really good tool to utilize right now, honestly.
Yeah, totally. So I have a for instance here. This one is based on a 6.125% interest rate. So just to kind of give you an idea, in this particular one, it doesn't really matter the loan amount. Let's just talk about payment, right? The loan amount doesn't matter with respect to what does it do to the payment, right? So let's just say at a 6.125% interest rate, that has a principal and interest, that has a total payment of $2,828. Now on this 2-1 buy down, you would go, the very first year, you'd be at 4.125, which has a payment of $2,274, right? That's a lot of money difference for that first year. And then that second year, it goes to 5.125, which carries a payment of $2,544. So you can see how the first year is $550 cheaper. The second year is, you know, almost $300 cheaper. And then that third year is where it goes back to your normal payment. So that's what the big benefit to the buyer is. Who pays for that, though? That would be the next question I have.
Yeah, exactly. Who's going to pay for that? And honestly, that it depends. It could be it's paid down by the seller, correct? Right. Yeah. So there's a few different ways to pay for it. Kind of depends on which lender you're using, because each one has their own nuances and their own ways of doing it. But the seller can pay for it. The realtor can pay for it. The lender can pay for it. 99% of the time, it's paid for by the seller as a seller concession, and that's used in full. So here's the caveat. The typical caveat is that the seller concession would need to pay for it in full unless there's a special, you know, program out there. But in general, it would be the seller. The buyer is not allowed to pay for this. So that's another reason why it's really hot in this particular market, is because there's a lot of seller concessions going down as the market starts to equalize, and used to be a really big seller's market. Now it's kind of turning into a buyer's market, kind of halfway in between here. And as it's turning into that market, sellers want to keep their home prices high, but now they're starting to offer a lot of concessions, and these concessions are what's paying for these 2-1 buy downs. Yeah, it's definitely a great incentive to hopefully get buyers to pull the trigger, which is, like you said, why they're so popular right now. Now, another question I would have is, if I'm a buyer, you're telling me I can get a cheaper rate for a few years, a cheaper payment for a few years, and I don't have to pay for it. Is there any negative, or is it just that great?
Yeah, I've done a lot of math. You can see in these papers here, I've actually done a lot of math to try and really figure out what the negatives are. There are some nuances. I'm not going to say there's negatives to it. There are some nuances. And I would say, listen, the biggest nuance, I would say, is that a 2-1 buy down is good for somebody who feels really good about refinancing in the next couple of years. If you're going to negotiate seller credits, seller concessions, and utilize it towards a 2-1 buy down, but then 4 years go by and you haven't refinanced yet, doing the 2-1 buy down probably is not a good idea. The math just doesn't work out because those seller concessions would be wasted on something that you didn't take full advantage of by refinancing within that couple of year period. So that would be kind of a nuance to it. Now, there's a really high propensity, there's a really high chance that we're going to be refinancing in the next couple of years, but it's certainly worth the conversation in terms of where you think rates will go, right? I'm not a big fan of marry the house, date the rate. I'm just not a fan of that because it's people's finances. It's we don't know the future. We don't know that. And so I wouldn't want to go into a 2-1 buy down with the words guaranteed that we're going to refinance in a couple of years. I think that it's a really high chance, but you just never know. So that would be a nuance to it.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Honestly, yeah. Like when it comes to people's finances, especially in this market, you can't pretend like you know everything. We don't know the future,
right?
And so I think you said it perfectly. It's a great tool if you believe that refinancing in a couple of years is in your future, but there are no guarantees. And that I would say that was a good answer and a good nuance to 2-1.
I think it just kind of lays to the point that listen, there's lots of different ways to go about basically anything, especially with loans. There's 2-1 buy downs with seller concessions. There's temporary, that's a temporary buy down. Then there's a permanent buy down. Then you can get closing costs paid for, or you can lower the purchase price. The point of all that is that there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and some ways are good for the seller, some ways are good for the buyer, some are a good happy medium, some it's just not a good idea at all. And in a 2-1 buy down is good for some people, not good for everybody. And just like having the seller pay for your closing costs, be good for somebody, not for everybody.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's going to depend on what works best for you, and that's kind of that's the discussion over on our end too. We want to figure out what works best for you. So
yeah, absolutely, and that's definitely the idea to have a good conversation with a loan officer and really dive into your finances and figure out what is good for you in your particular scenario and in your particular situation, and then make the best of it from there.
Absolutely.
Well, perfect. I think that basically covers very much high level. We could certainly dive deeper into the specifics of a 2-1 buy down, and if it's good for you, feel free to give us a call or just shoot some comments down below or text us if you have any more questions with regards to a 2-1 buy down or any of the other nuances that there might be, because there are some other nuances. There are some other things that go into it that as you get deeper into it in terms of the why and the how behind it, but I think this did a pretty good job in covering just the high level overview.
Yeah, best thing to do is probably, like you said, have a conversation with us, see what works best for you. But we just want to educate you on this really cool tool. And if maybe you're a fence buyer, this could be a cool option for you. And if it's not, if it sounds like maybe it's not the right option for you, there's options out there. So,
totally. Yeah. Awesome. Well, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.
See you soon.